Okay, so vid two of my video resume here. That's 15 minutes right there. I usually would say a lot of this stuff in any kind of first round interview, but if you can always get that stuff out there, and get somebody to watch this stuff beforehand, it makes any kind of interview you're going to go on a lot more in depth to, what they're looking for. How do I take any of these skills I've already learned along the way, manufacturing, equipment, crew systems, safety management, OSHA, whatever it is, and how would I look at it in any kind of in-field training that I would need to adapt to. Every job is different. There's always a learning curve. I don't care if you spent 10 years in a stone dock. If you jump over to another stone dock, you got to get used to the crew. You got to get used to their mannerisms, hand signals, and what have you, their equipment. Saws aren't just saws. It helps when you have some kind of mechanical base. You machine for a little while. You're good with in-depth processes, 10-step, 15, 20, 30-step processes, working a CNC machine, how to get into things. And you won't be so intimidated by jumping into a new one. You've handled a lot of processes like that to get through the first, honing the machine, to the zeroing it out, to your first few cuts that doesn't seem like it's a very complicated thing. There's a reason most guys, they always come back. They always ask the boss, what's the next move? What's the next move? But your memory's a little bit better when you have a little bit of machining experience and things like that. But that's just like without machining, working on operating a lift or loading bays or what have you. It's the same thing, but those processes take time. There's this and it has to happen. Push a button or what have you. You can push the wrong button. And in the series of events processes, I call them particles of the how-to element. Because that's what they are in quantum mechanics, which we're going to get into here in a little bit for my personal things. But for the moment, I just want to keep going here. So, like I said, you got to get used to those things. I've never assumed. I take my base very seriously, and it certainly helps me, but I don't walk into a place and just assume I know everything. One of my biggest rules with that is when you got a 10-year vet or a general, you always step in as their private. I don't care if you're coming in as manager. When you got a crew guy that's been doing it for a long, long time, or they're trusted, or they know the process, listen to them. They know their timelines, they know their capabilities, they know what's going to get done. So if you trust their evaluations for that, which you have to evaluate that out front. I mean, even if you're not coming in as a man, you just gotta, can I trust this guy? What can he do? Am I going to have to go to him, or is it somebody else to get the information that I need to go to? But again, always trust your generals. And your generals should always trust your crew. They know what answers they have. They know what they're capable of and what timelines they can get that done. You as a manager, you as another crew guy, you want to be a good, efficient power worker. It's by knowing that number and picking up the slack on the other end of that. Being aware of it, not bitching, not crying, just grinding. You gotta fucking grind. And I've always taken that, in everything I've ever done. You just, if you're not putting it to it always, if you're not living, you're bleeding. You're not moving, you're dying. Just how I was raised. So, I hope that kind of gives you some base of where I'm coming from. That, and I'm a bull, and I'm a horse, right? And I don't settle for anything less than that. I'm not real big on communication, right? Work talk, corn in Nebraska, we're down. I'm all for it. The working process of the day, laying it out and things like that. But I kind of fall short with the, crew. They talk about the cars, okay, the girlfriend, the dog, and sometimes you got to get involved for psychological reasons to keep your crew stable. Even if you're not a manager, you just being aware of it. What can I do to keep them productive? You know, what can I do to, you know, lighten up the spirits and the mood and bump up morale? You know, there's a fine line between, you know, being disconnected and being aware of that. And I'm good with that side of it, but I've never really been able to personally connect much. But you know, I can take it or leave it as long as we all trust each other and we're all safe with each other. You know, you trust me to do the job. I've always done good to make sure my brothers, you know, the guys I work with, you know, we've always had a good relationship on that side of it. But, you know, I've always been a wet blanket with the other stuff. Don't go out and party too much. I'm not a big drinker. Been in a little trouble. I'm not gonna lie to you. Got busted with a marijuana garden. So, it is what it is. Of course, I didn't... I had a very good rhythm and regimen for that, and very consistent. I just got bold. You know, I got tired of the bullshit, and I just wore it on my sleeve. I said, here it was. This is what it is. I'm going to do it correctly and safely. If necessary, I could pay taxes on this thing. I videotaped and documented every aspect of it. Took it to the science hilt, you know, all the botany, biology, bonsai, you know, I was full on with it, and nutrients. I mean, I went all out to make sure that anybody could do what I did, and hoping to change the rules. It's just didn't happen for me, but I took it on the chin. You know, I owned up to it. You know, here I am. You know, when they come and got me, and I didn't run, I didn't fight it, I own my own shit. You know, when I make a mistake, I run, I do triple. You know, if I'm walking across the mill and I forgot something, I'm jogging back to get it. I don't drag my feet. I own up to my responsibilities, and I own up to my stuff. Hey, you only regret the mistakes. It's would you rather regret the things you did or you didn't do in life? That may not go to everybody or everything, but for me, I don't regret it. You know, and cleaned up, ready to go, kicking ass. I've always been an ass kicker, though. That was the only thing that I've ever gotten in trouble for, and I wore it on my sleeve. I was just like, here I am. This is it, you know. So, but on the personal side of it, which is kind of involved but not really, you know, again, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, quantum mechanics, you know, I like the mathematics. I like integrating power series into what I do every day. You don't think about, you know, rotational force and the mathematics of, you know, volume and velocity and accelerations and momentums and potential energy, you know, if you like energy equations, or air turbulence equations and things like that for the mathematics, and the parapsychology, quantum mechanics of everyday operations. It's a Mason's game, but more of a Freemason's game, from what I've studied. It's integrating. You know, this is a parallel universe, essentially. It's all generalized in general relativity, but that's to say there's no such thing as general labor, only generals doing labor. You know what you're doing, you're a great worker, great laborer, then you're a general. I can rely on your numbers. That position is covered. You're on point, and I've always looked at, you know, what I do to try to do that, you know. And you got a great bottom guy on the rung. That guy's position can't be done by anybody else because they're a general. And, well, anyways, you know, so I do coding. Not exactly computer coding. I'm not computer illiterate, but, you know, when it comes to program and things like that, I actually do a different type of coding. I've been working on one for a few years. Oh, yeah, the STEM and Millennium problems. I've been studying them for years. In mathematics, so Erode's, Fermat's, Beal's, Riemann's hypothesis, Noah-Stroker's air turbulence equation, Poincare's conjecture, minion of Bitcoin, you know, all those computers, it's physics, it's mathematics, it's a little bit of psychology, and you're going to be getting into a lot of those fields. Study them. You know, get into psychology. You know, you want to know what a marshmallow experiment is, figure out frames of reference, you know, figure out, you know, and you'll see that they have a lot to do with mathematics. How do I trigger out a guy's working aspect, how do I trigger out my own, by framing the event in front of me. And again, you get good with it and you'll see it in everything after a while. But, somebody who doesn't, you want to really marshmallow experiment. What's your marshmallow? You get management out of this. You get safety out of this. You get economics. You get your own business principles out of this, And that's what you do showing up every day, just to be the grinder, But if some guys will take that, some guys won't, how do I position myself on them, and how do I adapt the situation so that everybody does? So that any guy on the fly, I can adapt it to it. That's the goal. I'm in the mud, in the dirt kind of guy doing it. Don't let that mathematics scare you too much. I love factory. I love high volume. I love manufacturing. It's very consistent. It's, those kinds of aspects into a thing are very crucial. You prize money in mathematics and you take it or leave it, right? It's not very consistent. Paycheck every week. You're pretty sure to get that. So. Other things I like to do is I work on a universal field theory. It's a lot about tutorials, any kind of field. And a manager, OSHA does one with chemical standards and things like that, safety analysis reports and stuff like that. Well, with the universal field theory, each position, thermal or rock face, finisher, sawyer, woodworking guy, and not just the woodworking guy, but any divisible system inside of that, each has a universal field theory. They're based in management of particles, of pieces and percentages. I love that stuff. That gets me all wet and wild, right? And you got to do it on the fly. It's got to be up here as much as adapting it to paper. When you can adapt that stuff to paper, doing it in mathematics, organizing universal field theories based in principles of, which, volume problems, area problems for a carpenter and things like that, to adapt them, to throw them on the fly to, an 18-year-old guy to train them. These are skills. These are really important systems. So it's Army swag. It's IMA. This is IMA thermal, or I am a rock face, or I am a carpenter, I am a countertop installer, I am, a handyman. What are the skills in that universal field theory, that universe, that really apply without any logical order and entanglement and things like that. I do chainmail. That's sit down for 7 days straight and just work, pair of pliers, kind of an attitude, as much as I like the high volume stuff, to fucking drill them out and what have you. I do etchings and engravings. There's one I'm working on right now. I got to cut it out when I get to work later on Monday. But it's not quite done. I got to do some background stuff on it. I do, stuff like this. I do honed bluestone. I've done a couple of headstones, name placards, driveway stuff. I like to be all over the map, right? You don't get the tag as a Renaissance man. You don't get a tag as a general by just having one skill. You got to be all over the map, man. You got to be everywhere. Your name's got to be synonymous with everything you touch. You might not be the greatest, but you're in it, and you'll get better, the longer you stay in things. And so I wanted to throw that part into there. So I've done, I get into botany, biology, stitched myself up a few times, what have you. Most of the time it's just paradoctoring situations, right? It's the machine. That's usually where it comes off. And I don't mean that just in factories and things like that. You'd be amazed what can be idealized as the machine, the grinder, right? The what have you. And for me, it's always been personally one of those aspects where you got to go at that machine. You got to grind the teeth off it, man. You got to go so hard that, these systems that seem like they'll just roll over most men. You're busting teeth off that motherfucker every day. Got to be hard, right? I run, I work out. I try to be the best-rounded, well-rounded, best monkey I can be, right? And try to play the horse card. So I'll give you the horse, not bull. Catch you on the next one.